We're finally getting to what accounting is. It might seem silly to say we're finally getting to that point because the first section was what is accounting, but this is truly the accounting language. So here we go. This should be at the top of that supplemental handout that I gave you. We're first looking at what's called the basic accounting equation, and then we'll get into what the expanded accounting equation means. What I'd like you to do, and use the whole page, what I'd like you to do is make a giant T, kind of a lopsided T. No, you can use those headings. So you're drawing a line across your page horizontally. And then where the equals sign is, you're heading vertically all the way down the page. So it looks like a lopsided T. I'm going to describe what each of these mean, give you examples, and then I'm going to talk about how it all works together. And this is the absolute foundation of accounting. It's what's called the basic accounting equation. Assets, I'd like you to label A. Liabilities, L. Owner's equity, OE. A lot of times you'll see ALO. A equals L plus OE. Assets are what you own as a business. Liabilities are what you owe as a business. And you can also put this into your personal life. What do you own? What do you owe? And that, what's called residual equity, is then what you are worth. I'll give you a real example. We just purchased a home at the beginning of this year. I can't remember the exact dollar amount. Let's just, for ease, say it was, and you don't have to write these numbers in. Let's say we purchased a $250,000 home. Okay, there's a structure, there's a garage, there's a shed, there's land. Okay, we own that. The question is, do we really own it? Probably not. You are right. Let's just say in a half year's time, we've knocked out $10,000. Okay, so what we owe on our house is about $240,000. What are we worth? If this was our only asset, we have other assets, thank goodness. What are we worth? $10,000. And it's very simple math. $250,000 equals $240,000 plus $10,000. That's simple math, very simple math. But if I tell it to you from an accounting story, I own a $250,000 house. That is its value. But I also owe on my mortgage or a loan to get that $250,000 house quite a bit of money. So if John and Jenny Marr say, we're done, we need to file bankruptcy, what do we really have to bring to the table? Well, 10 grand. Because they're going to try to liquidate our house, and all we're left with is really what we're worth. On the day we bought it, what were we worth? Nothing. Because we have a $250,000 house, but on day one, we owed $250,000. Okay, that should feel simple. Does that feel simple? Okay. As a business, things get a little bit complicated. I'm going to just start over here. As a business, you have a long list of assets. You have a long list of liabilities, and your owner's worth kind of is a moving target. So I think what we should do is start talking about each of them individually. So what I would do is under assets, write down some of these things. So again, here's that aloe, but now we're focusing just on assets. So write some of these down. Assets are resources a business owns. Okay, so let's just talk Willys for a minute. What does Willys own? They own the building. What else do they own? They own their carts. Riley also said they own their, their register terminals. You know, I'm sure the value of those, like the, what's the word? The conveyors, that whole system, I'm sure, is very expensive. Do they own all of their fixtures, their lights, their coolers, their freezers, ovens, all that kind of stuff? That'd probably fall under fixtures. They maybe have different names for it, but you get the idea. Can you charge at Willys? Okay. Those are called accounts receivables. That's a hard asset to wrap your head around because you can't really touch it. You know, I can go touch the building. I can go touch the carts. But the idea of eventually getting paid from someone who owes you money is an asset. So if Jenny Mars says, yep, I'll charge that milk today, Willys owns the right to eventually Jenny Mars paying them. So then one asset's going to go down because then when I come pay my bill, but then when I pay my bill, what's going to go up? Because that's an asset we haven't talked about yet. All their money, their cash, what's in the store, what's in the bank, what's in the cash registers, all of those are assets as well. So all things that we own. Willys probably has some reams of paper laying around, pens and pencils, grocery bags. Okay, all of those would be considered supplies. Things we own. Do some of these things lose value? Like the Willys van that drives around. Is that going to keep its value forever? No. Will the building keep its value pretty good? Yeah, in fact, buildings usually go up in value. Later in our book, we're going to talk about depreciation and how things depreciate or lose value and how that affects those assets, but that's for another day in another chapter. Let's go to the other side of the accounting equation. In the next chapter, you'll understand how important left and right are, one side versus another, but let's just talk generally what liabilities are. Liabilities are claims against your assets. Obligations to produce some kind of asset. Oftentimes, cash. Remember, what was the word you wrote above liabilities? Oh, so when you owe someone money or your expertise, that's what's considered a liability. Let's talk about the money side of it. Remember how I said if I owe Willys money, I'm an accounts receivable to them? Well, to me, they're accounts payable. I owe them money. So oftentimes, one person's accounts receivable is another person's accounts payable, or vice versa. So when you owe someone money, right now I owe my mortgage company about $240,000 or whatever the numbers really shake out to be. So I owe them money. They are making my worth go down because I'm sitting here in a $250,000 house but owe $240,000 on it. I owe that money. I have to make my monthly mortgage payment, and every month it goes down a little bit on what I owe them. You can also owe services. Do you know someone, you don't have to name them, but do you know someone that owns season tickets to the Vikings games? Do you know someone? Or are there season ticket holders? Sure. The Vikings have them as liabilities. What do they owe them? Not money. They owe them a game. I got to play the game. And so it's not always owing someone money, it's owing them like a service. And the service there is to produce an entertainment or a football game. We'll get into those kind of things as well. Finally then, owner's equity. Again, I used this word once, residual equity. Think of it as what is left over. An owner can have millions of dollars in assets, but if they owe millions of dollars on their assets, do they have much left over? No. There are a few more players here. That there's two things that make owner's equity go up, and there's two things that make owner's equity go down, and we're going to talk about them, and that presents what's called the expanded accounting equation. We'll get into that in a minute. So if I go back to this, you don't have to rewrite all this. I'm going to. Assets are what you own. Liabilities are what you owe. And your owner's equity is what you're worth. The vertical line shows up where the equal sign is. If I wanted to flip-flop the math around a little bit, this is what it looks like right now. I could move the L over. I could see assets minus liabilities equal owner's equity. I think that kind of is a truer form of like 250 minus 240. Well, on my house, I'm worth 10 grand. Okay. I'm going to show you how these two work in a minute. If I look under just this umbrella, and don't necessarily draw an umbrella yet, if I look at the owner's equity umbrella, it's already factoring in this. What I own minus what I owe is what I'm worth. But there's two things that can make it go up when an owner invests more money or assets in. That's one plus, and we're going to get into this in just a minute. There's also a plus when the business is making money, in other words, revenue. That's going to make the owner worth more too. So not only do we have this going on, assets minus liabilities, but if the owner infuses more money in, or if the business is doing well and they get revenue, that's going to make their owner's equity go up as well. There's two things that make the owner's equity go down, though. All the expenses, and if the owner decides to pay themselves. It's called drawing. But doesn't that make sense? Own minus owe. All the money generated from revenue, all the pluses from if they invest more, but if they got to pay the light bill, or if they have to pay advertising expenses, or if they have the biggest expense that a business has, like paying their employees, it's going to make the owner's worth go down. Or if the owner decides, hey, I want to get a paycheck. Or, hey, I want to buy a bag of groceries. If they withdraw money out of the business, that's going to make their owner's equity go down as well. So that's getting into what's called the expanded accounting equation. Here's the little thing that's in your notes. The basic accounting equation's ALLO. The expanded accounting equation, instead of saying owner's equity, they're saying the two pluses and the two minuses contribute to what they're worth. So let's talk about the two pluses. So kind of under, if I drew something like in your notes, you see how this looks in your notes like this? I don't know if I draw these vertical lines, but there's two things that make the owner worth more. Investments, so put a plus, and so I don't know, wherever you feel like it makes sense in your notes, here's what makes the owner go up. Investments. If ever the owner decides to add more assets, here's where I see the two. They could add more cash, or they could add more stuff. Their overall worth is going to go up. So they could say, I want to put $20,000 into the business. Okay, boom, now we're all of a sudden worth more. If they put $20,000 of cash in, what else is going to go up? Owner's equity is going to go up. What else is going to go up out of the big players up there? Assets. Assets are going to go up too because owner decides to say, boom, here's 10 grand business. Now owner's equity is going to go up, and so is assets because there's more cash. Or they can say, I want to out of my own pocketbook, I want to give a bobcat to the business, skid loader. They're contributing some more equipment, but they've also invested that bobcat in the business. Another plus is revenue. Revenue from selling groceries at Willie's. Revenue from selling flowers at Sweet Lily's. Revenue from selling season tickets if I'm the Vikings. That's going to make owner's equity go up because money is coming into the business. If money is coming into the business, I go buy a dozen roses at Sweet Lily's after school, the owner's worth is going to go up. Am I going to pay them? So assets are going to go up as well. Here's a real trick for you. Is an asset also going to go down? What am I taking out of the store with me? Flowers, roses. Did they own those roses? No, those roses are gone. They're out the door. But as a result, I paid them. Cash went up. We're going to get into the transactions tomorrow. And then it's really going to start to make sense. But I just got to get the vocabulary in front of you right now. According to the expanded accounting equation, two things make it OE go up. Two things also make OE go down. Drawings. Anytime an owner withdraws, that's why it's called drawings, either cash or stuff. So back here, they can invest cash and stuff, but they can also withdraw cash and stuff. So maybe the owner's like, I want to bring my wife a dozen roses tonight. We're going to take those roses out, but I'm withdrawing those assets, those things out of my store. Or I want to pay myself. They can't just take the money because GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle, says don't just take the money. You have to withdraw that money. Put it on paper. You also, as a business, don't get to keep the money you pay in expenses. The light bill, the utility bill, the heat, paying for your ad on KMRS, KKOK, paying for your ad in the Stevens County Times. If you have to take that money out of your business, that is going to decrease your overall worth. This slide one more time. Your basic accounting equation is this. Assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. The expanded accounting equation is still assets equal liabilities plus two things minus two things. What are the plus two things? If we want to look at it expanded. Plus investments plus revenue minus expenses minus drawing. Can it be in whatever order? Yeah. That's this section of the chapter in a nutshell. Should we do some end of chapter right now? Okay, cool. We have about a half an hour. I don't know if we're going to need it. But this is all I want to do today. This is all I want to do today. I don't want to rush you. I don't want to say, oh, we have 10 minutes. Let's move on. No. I want you to leave being able to explain allo and expanded allo. And it has nothing to do with the sunburn, people. It's assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity, or assets equal liabilities plus investments plus revenue minus expenses minus drawing. That's what I want you to leave here with. So some questions make me think, go find your end of chapter stuff you did yesterday in your notebook and just pick up right where you left off. So here we are again. We're just going to do, we did questions 1 through 10 yesterday. We're going to do 11, 12, and 13. And then we're going to do some BEs today, brief exercises. So it looks like we're on page 33 here. And we'll get into the brief exercises in just a minute. So let's just continue from yesterday. Does everyone see where we're at? Page 33, number 11 asks, what is the basic accounting equation? So just, again, put it on paper. Spell it out. Abbreviate it out. I also want you to do the Mrs. Mars version. Own equals O minus worth. Own equals what you owe minus your worth. Give me an example of an asset. Row 1. What's something you own? Your car. Did I do something wrong? Own equals O minus worth. My smartboard right now in this right corner is acting up. So sometimes my stuff gets kind of wonky up there. What else do you own? And set a car. What else do you own? Let's use an actual business. Let's use Sweet Lily's. It's a flower shop in town right by the theater. They own their delivery van. What else do they own at that flower store? Flowers! What else? They do have more gifts and other things you can buy, yeah? What else? The building. We don't know. They may be rented or they may be own it. We're not sure, but let's for practicality here, let's say they own it. What's in the till? Cash. They own their cash. What if the two Bens in here owe money to Sweet Lily's? What's that called? We can't touch the fact that they owe that. Accounts receivable. We hope the Bens pay their bill. When they pay their bill, is their bill going to go down? Yep, so AR will go down, but what's going to go up for Sweet Lily's when they pay their bill? Well, yes, it's revenue. It's tricky. That cash or the assets will go up, but so does the revenue. That's good. I'm glad you said that. Very good. Number 12. Define the terms assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. And then part B, let me rephrase this. What two things make owner's equity go up? And what two things make owner's equity go down? Otherwise known as the expanded accounting equation. We've really already answered part A, but put it down again. Assets are what we own. Liabilities are what we owe. The book likes to call them claims against assets. That's just a fancy word for, or set of words that say we owe someone and eventually we're going to use the asset of cash to pay them. That's what they mean by claims against assets. It's owing someone where we're eventually going to use cash to reduce that IOU. Owner's equity, residual equity. In other words, what's left when we owe versus what we own on it, or what we own versus what we owe on it. And part B, the players of the expanded accounting equation, plus investments minus drawing plus revenue minus expenses. You are going to find out, and the reason they do those two little pairs together, here's why. And I'm getting way ahead of myself. Later you're going to learn this deals with the owner's equity statement. These two deal with the income statement. So the reason they don't lump them, the plus plus and the minus minus, one partnership of plus minus goes with the owner's equity statement, one plus minus goes with income statement. That's why they do plus minus plus minus. 13. Ooh. Which of the following items are liabilities of this jewelry store? Let's redefine what a liability is. When we owe money to someone, or in the case of the Minnesota Vikings, when we owe a game to be played to our season ticket holders. And you guys have probably heard of that, more so on the concert side. If you get yourself tickets to Taylor Swift, isn't she on tour right now? Okay, Taylor Swift's on tour. You've bought those tickets. You are a liability to her because she owes you not money, but a concert. You've heard of concerts having to be canceled. That's a big deal because then that liability is not being fulfilled. Then what do you do? Do you reschedule it, or do you give them their money back, or do you have some crazy clause in the ticket purchase that if this is canceled, sorry, you're out? I've heard of all three happening. So we have to look at this list and decide what does this jewelry store owe on? Do we owe anything on A? Okay. What I would like you to do is make that list A through I in your notes. And maybe put in your notes a list of jewelry store accounts. And we're going to label all of them, whether we owe money on them or not. So just say jewelry store accounts, A, cash, B, accounts payable, C, owner's drawing. And we're going to label them either A, L, or OE right now. Make that list in your notes. Let's do A. Cash. Do we own it? When I say do we owe it, that's kind of a tough one. Or is it our worth? A pile of cash is our asset. We own that cash. B. Do we owe it? I'm going to say it in order. Do we own it? Do we owe it? Or is it our worth? We owe it. Accounts payable means it's some business that we eventually have to pay. So we must owe on it right now. That's a liability. Owner's drawing. Do we own that? Do we owe it? Or is it affecting our overall worth? it affects our worth, so it's OE. And what I would do is put a minus by it. That's going to make our overall worth go down. Ooh, well, yeah, we did talk about D. Accounts receivable. Bradley's right, it's an asset. What do we own there? The rights to eventually getting paid for that bill. Next one, supplies. Do we own those? Do we own our paper and our pencils and our staples? We rent them. Equipment, F. Do we own that stuff? Yeah. Do you think we probably all own it though too? But right now the equipment itself is an asset. It would have to say like John Deere equipment, comma, payable. Like we probably own it too. Ooh, I see a key word here. If you can't tell, there's a key word with a liability. And what is it? Payable. Salaries and wages payable. Who do we owe on this one? Oh my, our employees. We better pay this one. Also, when it says like Social Security payable or income tax payable, that means you owe the federal government and you better not be late on that bill. Okay, anytime you see the word payable, it is a liability that you owe. Service revenue. I see a key player word there. It's a plus to where? OE. It makes them worth more. And there's another key player here. Rent expense. Minus OE. That's a kind of a tricky one. Let's go on to our brief exercises. So remember, there's a couple different things we can do in a chapter at the EOC time. EOC, we could do questions, we could do brief exercises, or we could do exercises. Yesterday we did here. Today we're doing questions and brief exercises. Remember, at the very end, that's when we will do problems. We'll typically do an A set together. You'll do B sets on your own. And sometimes I'll even provide a C set for you to just practice at your leisure. I like stopping and doing EOCs mid-chapter because it's like pertinent to what we're doing right now. It feels like it takes us forever to get through the chapter, but trust me, when you're done, you're going to be like, dang, that was easy. I get it now. Okay? All of you will have your light bulb moments at different times. Your light bulbs will go off at different times. You're going to be like, oh, I got it. Some of you are sitting here going, this is so confusing. Some of you are like, this is so easy. And my goal is to get you all to the light bulb moment where you're sitting there like, we got it. We're bored. We got it. So let's do some brief exercises. Will you check your workbook pages? Do you have brief exercise 1 in that workbook? I can't remember. It'd be like one of the first things. I see problems. I see a lot of problems. Brief exercise 1-1. All right. Brief exercise 1-2, brief exercise 1-3, brief exercise 1-4. See you next page. Okay. So now you don't have to try to do this in your notebooks. You can do it in your workbook. Sweet. Okay. Presented below is the basic accounting equation. Determine the missing amounts. Like you might say, this is like 2nd grade math. So we're at the bottom of page 33. We're in our workbook for the first time. Exciting. A, we own $90,000 in assets, but we owe $50,000 on those assets. What is our worth? $40,000. It's like you owning a $90,000 sports car, but owing 50 grand on it, you're really only worth 40. You the person. Sports car's worth 90. You the person who took out a loan are worth 40. All right. So if you have liabilities and owner's equity, You owe 40 grand, but you're worth 70. How many assets do we own? 110. What are you two whispering about? Did I put something wrong in the notes? You can tell me. I think it must have meant to be put a plus. Okay. You got to call me out on that when I'm up here. I get in the zone and I miss little details like that, which is really actually a big detail. So in the note somewhere it was a minus. It should have been a plus. Maybe you caught that. Please call me out on that. It's okay. Part C, $94,000 worth of assets. What do you owe on them if you're worth 53? The difference, 41,000. So those should feel kind of easy. It's just simple math. All right, next one. Given the accounting equation, answer each of the following questions. I want to see what it looks like in your workbook. Oh, it's just another one just like that. Cool. I just wish my answer key was in the format yours is. The Grieg company owes $120,000 and they're worth $232,000. So 120 plus 232, they own $352,000 worth of stuff. I like your format better, don't you? If Grieg company has $190,000 in assets, in other words, what they own, but they're only worth 91, what's the missing factor here? 99, what they owe. In C, the total assets of Grieg company are $800,000 and its liabilities are equal to 1/2 of its assets. What are they worth? 400. And the last one we're going to do together, brief exercise 1.3, or did I say we're doing brief exercise 1.4? I don't want to yet. That goes with the next section. I just want to do this brief exercise 1.3 and we're done. Is it kind of the same as what you've been doing? Try it. Try it. Try it on your own and I'll show you the answers in just a moment. Talking about increasing and decreasing assets, don't forget to read right at the beginning. At the beginning of the year, Sealert Company had total assets of 800 and liabilities of 300. Then they're saying, what if they're increasing and decreasing throughout the year? To help guide you to make sure you're on the right track. If we started with 800 worth of assets, but it actually increased to 150, and we had 300,000 in liabilities, and we actually decreased them by 80, it shows you where to gather the numbers. I still like the big T better, so it would look more like this. And it would have, I shouldn't have wrote in red, sorry. I'd have $800,000 worth of assets plus the 150 we added equals $300,000 in liabilities minus what we paid off. I think, and then we're trying to figure out this space. I think that visually makes more sense, but that's the accounting teacher in me. So that visually looks at the accounting equation a little bit better. I might have done the second one a little bit wrong. I'm going to erase. My answer key I don't like. How are your numbers looking? Pretty good. Basic math. A equals L plus OE. We will review this concept tomorrow, but we're going to put it more into transaction terms. Like you buy a company car using cash. What does it look like for Allo? You pay an accounts receivable with cash. What does that look like with Allo? So I think tomorrow your light bulbs are really going to go off and it's going to start to make sense. What I want you to understand from today, what is Allo? What is the expanded Allo? Two things that make owner's equity go up and two things that make owner's equity go down on the expanded. So that's a wrap. If we have to slow down and go through transactions over the course of 2 days, I'm willing to do that.